Get 'em.
Welcome, folks. Y'all come on in and make yourself at home. This here, well, this is the Rolling Thunder Podcast, your home for all things Rolling Thunder. This episode is brought to you by Mossy Oak, because everything is better in Bottomland. Kent Cartridge, quality matters, performance counts. Shen Gear, waterfowl gear that is built better. And Benelli USA, dominate the skies.
We took a break for just a second, and we're going to talk now about the store and Pop's business career. So at some point in all of the happenings and the timeline, Pop made a decision to leave IBM and come back to Memphis and work for his father-in-law. Y'all dive in your earliest memories of those stories.
Well, as far as my memories of the store, I never dreamed that I'd be making a career of it. But I mean, I can remember a lot of the same things that you can remember when you were a little kid about going out there, running up and down upstairs, and you know all the stuff, going back in the warehouse and doing whatever. We don't have time for all of that, you know what?
And playing on the cash register.
Yeah, working the cash register and the ad machine and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, as far as, I mean, that's.
Well, just, all right, so let's take one step back. Somebody explain, what do we mean by the store? What was the store?
Go, Leslie.
They're looking at me. Hollywood Furniture and Hardware Company. And that Granddaddy had partners when he first started. There were 7 of them.
Really?
Yes. And he came to Memphis on the train to be a barber. And he was actually a barber at Cooper Young. And that's where he met Grandmama when he got off the train, because Grandmama had a friend that was Granddaddy's friend in Henderson. And she said, will you come up to the train stop with me? Roy Sanford is coming with whoever her boyfriend was. And that's where Grandmama and Granddaddy met. And so he had some businessmen that approached him and asked him if he'd go into business with them.
Let me interrupt you.
Yes.
Granddaddy Sanford, or Roy, grew up in Henderson?
Yes.
And he came to Memphis with his friend who was Grandmama's boyfriend?
No. Grandmama had a friend that lived down the street from her on Nelson or whatever at Cooper and Young that was going to see her boyfriend at the train stop that's actually behind Railgarten right there at Cooper and Young.
Okay.
And said, come on, Irene. Whoever her boyfriend is bringing his friend Roy to Memphis to be a barber and come with me. And that's where Grandma and Granddaddy met.
So Granddaddy was moving to Memphis
to be a barber.
And met Grandmama when he got off the train.
Yes. Yeah. And so I don't know how many years later, couldn't have been many, because he started the store in 24 and he was born in 1900, so he was only 24 then. So at some point before that, I mean, I don't know if he came to Memphis at 16 or 17 or 18, but some businessmen knew that the Hollywood community was the up-and-coming place with all the industry that we spoke of earlier, and asked him if he would be willing to be in business with them when they built a furniture and hardware store.
Yeah,
so
believe it or not, Hollywood was all that.
It was all that.
Yeah, and it was the end of the trolley line.
Yeah.
It was the end of the city. That's
exactly
where the
right.
streetcar would turn around.
From downtown?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It would come out Chelsea.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And turn around right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that's where they built Hollywood Furniture and Hardware.
Chelsea's the east-west.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Memphis, in terms of how it's laid out, Memphis is an east-west town.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
Union, Walnut Grove, Poplar,
Summer.
Chelsea, Summer,
Yes.
all those major thoroughfares. Everything in Memphis has always been an east-west. You have residential that kind of grew some to the north and south, but all of Memphis's history moved east.
Well, when you're butted
from
up against the
river.
river,
Correct.
you got to be east or west, and it couldn't go any farther west, and so everything went east from there. originally.
And so the 7 partners, were they active participants in the business, or were they investors that, do you know?
They must have just been investors. But then the one family that was friends during all of our lifetimes, drawing a blank on his last name.
The Beatties.
The Beatties, thank you. They were very.
I think
They were very much
he was
part
involved.
of it.
Yeah.
Mr. Beatty was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They were involved like day-to-day operations?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
But then at some point, and now we don't have anybody to ask, but at some point, Granddaddy bought them out, and then it was just Granddaddy and Grandmama's business. Yes.
And you were saying right before we took a break, Grandmama was very involved. She
Yes.
was a businesswoman.
She actually
yeah.
went to business school.
Yeah.
She did all the book work.
Yeah. And we found some of Granddaddy's early books that
Yeah.
were like a journal.
Uh-huh. A ledger, like a ledger.
Yeah, but just a book, that was like a journal.
It was in a journal book.
And so instead of it being the ledger pages that we had later that were long for all the descriptions, Granddaddy would just kind of make a note about what somebody bought, and then he would say, see page whatever, and so they would add the little hardware purchases on page whatever to the furniture purchases. And Bart and I were amazed by Granddaddy's early bookkeeping that he kind of came up with
well,
himself.
but you got to remember he didn't have
No, 8th grade education. Yes.
8th grade
Really?
education. Yeah.
But no one could write better than Granddaddy Sanford.
Yeah.
And Carolyn and Mom both remember Granddaddy doing his hand in a circular motion like he learned in school before he would write a letter to somebody. So he would have the
He'd
perfect
warm up.
penmanship.
Yeah.
So he would have the perfect penmanship.
Yeah.
Penmanship was a big deal back
Yep.
then.
Yeah.
This is a big deal to Pop.
Yeah.
I was going to say it was a big deal to us growing up, too.
Yeah, because to us, it looks like if you can't halfway write, you're not very educated.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I
Which is-
remember
that's
Pop
where
saying
they
that to us
came
as
from.
kids, like, no,
Yeah.
rewrite that.
Yeah.
That looks ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know that doesn't matter now, but it still does kind of impress you when you get a thank you note from somebody and they can write.
Man, I remember Pop made checklists that went on the back door at Pickwick, and it was like, it might as well have been.
Yeah.
We could scan that and make a font out of it because
That's
it
right.
is perfect.
Yeah.
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 That's interesting to hear you say that about Granddaddy Sanford having that same intentionality and care about the way that he wrote. So,
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, Granddaddy was real special to me, and his name is Roy Spencer Sanford, and that's where we got Spence's name when we
Yeah,
named
that's true.
him.
Yep. That's
Yep.
right.
That is interesting, and I did not realize until you sent me that newspaper article that Roy's father was named John
John
Spencer.
Spencer, yes.
I'd never heard that before.
Well, and the Sanford name is my middle name, and Will's middle name.
It's Bartley, William Bartley.
Yep.
Okay, so the store. Do you know, if you had to take a guess on when Granddaddy Sanford bought his partners out, what would you put it to be? Year?
I'm pretty sure I was a teenager.
Okay, we'll do teenager math on top of 1955.
And see, I don't
1970.
really remember that because I only remember Granddaddy being there
I don't ever remember.
the time we were children.
But Granddaddy was there even when Daddy bought it for a while.
Just talking about when he bought out the partners. Is that what you said, Spence?
Yeah, I'm talking
Oh,
about
I'm
when
sorry.
did Granddaddy Sanford buy
Yes.
his
those-
partners out?
I mean, I would
Okay,
think it was just
I'm
a
sorry.
few years after 1924.
I would think by 1930-something
Yeah.
it was Granddaddy's.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So
'cause I
early on, he
vaguely
bought his partners
I vaguely
out.
remember any of that.
Yeah.
Do you ever
7-year
remember
partners.
any Granddaddy telling stories about how or why he chose to do that?
No.
No, I can certainly remember Granddaddy working at the store.
Right.
And Grandmama coming out there working in the office right next to my mom would come out there a lot of times.
yeah.
She'd come out
Yeah.
some days a week and help Grandmother Sanford with the book work. But Granddaddy was right there waiting on hardware customers, and so you had mother and father and grandparents all in that
Yep.
same building at the same time. So
Well, Mom and Carolyn always laughed because they said when we were children, Granddaddy wanted to spend time with Mom and Carolyn. And so Granddaddy would pay the babysitter or the help that was cleaning Mom or Carolyn. Say
Yeah, you can say it.
anyway, Granddaddy would pay the maid to clean the house, babysit us, and then he would have Carolyn there 2 days a week, had Mom there 2 days a week, with the excuse that they were doing book work. And they did some.
But it was so
not
he could
much.
spend time with
It was
him.
so they
Right.
could, and then he would take them each to lunch on both of those days a
Mm-hmm.
week and buy their lunch and spend an hour and a half with them. So they
Jeez.
really laughed because they said they didn't earn their keep and do any hardly work at the store during the time we were being raised. He just wanted to be with us and wanted them to be at the store with he and grandmama while we were growing up.
Mercy. I feel like a terrible parent.
Because grandmama did all
Work
the
with my
books.
children
Grandmama
every
did all
day.
the books at night.
Yeah.
And then in years later, Mom did all the books at night.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was so fun to go up there and visit as a child. And Granddaddy would give you, they had an old cash register that you pull the handle and it would make a dinging noise. And we would always like opening that, and he would give us some change. And it was just a blast. We could run around and,
Oh, we all had the tricycles.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but there were tricycles that they sold. We would ride them around the store and
Ride them upstairs like Comanches.
Yeah.
And he never said don't run the tricycle into the furniture. And he did. And we had to scarred up the furniture.
And you could hear it downstairs.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it was like a freight train rolling on those wooden floors
Yeah.
in the upstairs. It was like, what
and
the
then
world's
take us
going
to
on?
the bakery next door and say, get anything you want, little
Yeah.
sweetheart.
So I'm just wrapping my mind around this for a second. Granddaddy Sanford came here early in his life to be a barber. Some men approached him, helped him start the store. I'm sure he didn't have two nickels to rub together, so they provided all of the capital, and at some time shortly thereafter, he bought them out. That had to be a tremendous risk. I wonder what his parents thought about that, to move from the country into the city. And
They were so proud. And he
Yeah.
never forgot the people in Henderson.
That's
he
right.
didn't.
And he and my grandmother went back very often to care for them and to help the community there. And yes.
And would take us with them a lot.
Oh yeah, we knew our Henderson folks, relatives. We used to go up there
Yeah.
and spend time with them. Granddaddy, and even later, he bought a farm up there in Henderson, out from Henderson just a little bit, and he spent a lot of time up there on Hughes Road.
And behind Grandmama's couch was that painting of
Yeah.
of some pasture in Henderson, right?
That's in the house that Granddaddy grew up in, wasn't it?
Mom and Papa
Sanford's house.
That's
John
a painting
Spencer's
of
house.
their
Of the
house.
house, yeah.
Yes.
Who has that painting?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I haven't
I
seen
can
it.
see that in
Oh,
my
yeah.
mind's eye.
It
from
may be.
Grandmama's house.
It may be upstairs in our attic because we have all Grandmama and Granddaddy's stuff in our attic, along with my other grandparents and great grandparents. And
Two of my, this is a side note, but I have such fond memories of, I cut Grandmama Sanford's grass and I cut Bobo's grass, which would have been Granddaddy Gary's house, because Bobo moved here and she left the farm. So for most of my high school, before I could drive, because Mom drove me there, from before I could drive until after I could drive, so call that 14 to 17, I cut both sides of my great-grandparents' yard. And Grandmama and Bobo both always insisted that I come sit down and take a break. And they both had something different in their refrigerator. I don't really remember what Grandmama Sanford had, but Bobo always had Tab and caffeine-free Coke. There wasn't much of diet stuff, but she had caffeine. There was gold cans. And
She probably drank that with a Winston
straw.
cigarette.
Oh, 100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
100% at Bobo's. When I
diet-
sat there
the
and
diet-
drank
the
a
Diet
soft
Coke,
drink,
yeah.
she was smoking the whole
A
time.
Winston, probably with no filters.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I didn't mean to derail into that, but what I was trying to wrap my mind around was that Granddaddy Sanford owned. So if we're going to guess that Pop bought the store in 1970, you said high school. So if you were born in 55, somewhere close to 1970, you'd have been 15.
Yeah.
So Granddaddy Sanford owned and worked there for 40 years. And then when he sold it to Pop, did he retire or did he continue working there?
He worked some.
He did still work some.
Yeah.
He still worked some.
There wasn't a very big deal made about Daddy purchasing the
No.
store from
No, it was-
Granddaddy. I don't remember knowing
Well-
that until after the fact.
It was a big deal to Pop.
Yes, it was. But I'm just saying.
But They did. There was a bunch of pomp and circumstance about
Well,
it.
and Mom and Dad made payments to
Yes.
Sanfords for a lot of years because they couldn't afford it
Right.
at the time, just flat out.
Right.
I do remember Pop making comments about he felt like Granddaddy Sanford took too long to sell it to him. He promised it to
Yep.
him, and
Yep.
that it took too long. He had to pay too much. All all those kind of frustrating things. But I guess I was just trying to wrap my mind around what the store must have felt like to Granddaddy Sanford, because to ride a train to Memphis and be a barber and then to have the opportunity to buy your partners out, like he had to have a lot of deep-seated personal pride in that store for
no
what he
doubt.
accomplished.
Yeah.
Because then Pop felt that same way. It was hard for him to purchase. And, I mean, he was proud of the store until he passed away. I mean, that
But
was –
Grandmom and Granddaddy were so generous. And if Mom had been the only child, they would have given it to Mom and Dad.
Huh.
But there was Carolyn and Buzzy. And I think Grandmom and Granddaddy gave Carolyn and Buzzy the opportunity also. But Buzzy was a businessman and a banker, and they, moved to Knoxville. But I know Grandmom and Granddaddy would have given the store, but it had to be fair. And then that had to be split with Mom and Carolyn, because we were taught from way back that everything had to be fair.
Yeah,
And everything
fair,
had to
that's
be equally divided.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the fun memories, and this went into my adulthood, was Granddaddy's birthday was on December 24th. So every Christmas Eve, we went to the store and had lunch. And they also invited customers to have lunch. And my grandmother provided lunch. And we would go up there and see Granddaddy on his birthday. And then when the store closed, we would go to that same grandmother Sanford's house for Christmas for the whole family. And she would cook all the food for that.
Wow.
And
So I remember
Christmas
going
Eve,
to the store for lunch on Christmas Eve,
That's why.
but I didn't know that was because that was Granddaddy's birthday.
But we kept doing that even after Granddaddy passed in
Right.
73.
But they started doing it originally because they were
77.
open.
That's yeah.
And back then, Christmas Eve was a huge day.
Right.
Everybody was
it was a huge
last
day
minute
even
Christmas
in
shopping.
our early
Right.
career, because the customers would buy paint and they would buy linoleum for their floors, and they would spiff up their house on Christmas Eve day for
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, Christmas
As well
Eve.
as gifts like tricycles
Yeah,
and
right.
all those
But
kind of
they
things for
started doing that because they were open, and it was Granddaddy's birthday. So originally they started doing it for all their friends. Grandma would cook a big lunch, and all their friends would come by and eat lunch so they could celebrate Granddaddy's birthday.
Can you imagine?
And we carried it on
She cooked
until
lunch for everybody in the Hollywood community and then hosted everybody for dinner.
well, and then we carried it on all those years after Granddaddy was
Right.
gone. And one year, because then we would always go to Mom and Dad's house
Right.
to have our Christmas.
Christmas Eve.
And we kept doing it way after Grandmother was dead, and Mom and I finally said,
This is too
we got to
much.
stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember that
I
until
know.
I was in middle school or high school.
yeah,
We went out to the store for lunch,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it was customers would come through, and y'all set up that back area with
Yeah.
tables, and
Yeah.
y'all'd be working while
And
we
you
were
and your
all-
cousins would run around.
We'd be
Oh, yeah.
delivering all day on Christmas Eve
Oh,
because
man.
people had bought stuff they wanted to deliver it on Christmas Eve.
And all the guys would get all the tables set up for lunch to start at 11.
Have to get something out of
and
the
we'd
warehouse.
have to move them all because somebody bought linoleum.
yeah, we'd have to.
And we'd have to roll the linoleum out and cut the linoleum so they could deliver it and then set up all the tables again.
That's right.
Yeah, but it was
Yeah.
a great memory.
Yeah.
So then, right after Christmas was inventory in January. And so when we were old enough to be able to count accurately, we would all go up there on Christmas break from school and count inventory.
Oh my word,
And I even did that when I didn't ever really work there.
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I've never heard that story.
But
Yeah.
you were on the payroll. You were on the payroll when we found all those old ledger deals.
Yeah.
You were on the payroll.
I did work there a little bit,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not very much.
There's a gazillion places. My mind is like
Well,
an ADD
Well, you're talking about
too.
100
nightmare
years.
factory.
You're talking about 100 years of a business operation that was survivor.
Yeah.
We survived even after everything had changed in Hollywood.
So what year did Granddaddy Sanford pass away?
77.
Okay.
78.
Okay.
Yes, 78 in February, and I married in July of 78. Yes, 78.
And so this is a really technical question, but do you know at what point the store became a C Corp?
No.
Did Pop do that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
For tax
The
purposes?
same guy that was a financial guy at IBM was running and owning Hollywood Furniture and Hardware at Chelsea and Hollywood.
But I think he did that before he owned it, didn't he?
Probably, I'm sure he
Yeah.
did, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying,
Yeah.
he had that financial mind that
Yeah.
he could.
Yeah.
He
I
knew
said
what
C Corp. Was it a C Corp or an S Corp?
See,
See, yeah.
So I'll say this, before Daddy owned it, when I was little, and I'm thinking like between 8 and 10 maybe, on Saturdays, Daddy would take me with him to do collections. So he would go and to people's homes to see if they wanted to pay on their bill that they had, and he would go up to the door, and he would always take me with him so I could see how he talked to them, and so he could talk to me about being thankful for the things I had and how we needed to care for people that didn't have as much as we did. That really stands out of my mind. Plus, I love that time to just be with Daddy.
Yep.
Because as the oldest, I didn't get much of that just because the way life is with family. So that was really special.
That's so interesting because at one point in my life, I thought I wanted to be a slumlord and have rental properties. I wanted to be like Gary Henson. It kicked me in the teeth because I didn't get that part of Pop's business acumen. But Gary Henson told me that he went to all of his renters' homes on the first of the month to collect rent, and he
Yeah.
told me that he learned that from Pop.
Right.
And I never really knew. I didn't understand what that meant, but that's exactly what he was talking about.
And it was usually around the first of the month. I forgot that. So they need to tell how they started doing credit at the store. That was Granddaddy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because this has always amazed me.
well, and before we go to that, the collection thing that Dad always kept us in line about was Dad said I had to go collect enough money every month so that I could pay my bills. And he said, I promised that if I ever got to the point where I didn't have to collect enough to pay my bills, that the bank balance would ever get low for Hollywood Furniture and Hardware. So even until Dad quit doing the books, he would always tell us that you couldn't pay your bills with your assets. You had to have cash.
Yeah.
And if the bank balance ever got smaller than several $100,000, he would panic because he didn't want us to have to
Borrow
not
money.
be able to pay
Or
our
borrow
bills.
money.
Yeah.
Wow. That's hard to wrap your mind around.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. That's an excellent detail. Because that's what I was trying to get to is it's one thing to have one person like Granddaddy Sanford who figured it out. It's another thing to have somebody that comes along after him that's not actually even a blood relative that's able to not only continue that legacy but accentuate it and grow it, and it's remarkable. Okay, you were going to talk about credit.
Well, and people can't understand that now.
Right. They
Because-
can't. That's why I wanted you to talk about it.
People can't understand that now because now kids go to college and the parents either buy a house in the town where they're going and rent it out to other friends of their kids, or they put them in a nice apartment and they don't have a used sofa and a hand-me-down this and all that we had that we were so proud of in our first apartment or whatever it was, because people just have stuff now and they either are borrowing it all,
That's right.
which my parents never borrowed any money, but it's
they-
just a
and they-
whole different lifestyle
And they
now.
pay their bills with a credit card.
Credit
Yeah.
card.
They pay what they owe. They pay the credit that they owe for with another credit
Yeah.
card.
But like we said earlier, we never knew, that we didn't have everything and then some.
So
Go ahead.
I'm going to start it. So they had this big black notebook. I wouldn't call it a notebook.
Ledgers.
Ledger.
And it was about this size. I know your people aren't seeing it. And it could be adjusted on the side to add more pages or take more pages out. And it was in alphabetical order, and it was all the people that were customers that had bought something on credit, which meant they would let them have whatever the item was, as long as they agreed to pay on it every single month. And a lot of the people lived on their government check. And so the people would come in when they got their government check the first of the month, and Daddy or Bart or Leslie, one of the employees, would have been to the bank to get a whole bunch of cash. So they would cash the check, and they would pay on their bill at the same time.
When did
whatever
that
they
start?
owned.
When do you think that?
I
Did
think we
Granddaddy
always-
Sanford start that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we always did that. We'd cash payroll checks so they could pay on their bill. We'd cash government checks, both Social Security and welfare or whatever.
And if you had an account with us, there was no charge.
That's right.
Right.
We
So
never
we-
Unlike
charged
the
to
liquor
cash
stores
checks.
that charge people to cash their check, if you had an account with us, there was no charge to cash your check,
And
even when you weren't paying on your bill.
I thought you had to pay. Sorry, I thought you had
No,
to pay on
we-
your bill when they cashed
First
the
of
check.
the month, they'd come here and just cash it.
Okay.
Well, and when we went off of the ledgers onto computers, we had 3 of those ledger books full of ledger
Backups.
pages.
No.
3,
No.
because there was too many for one of those ledger books.
Oh, because there's customers
and they were
list had
about
grown
5
so much.
inches tall. So we had
They were heavy too.
we had
Yeah.
3 of those full of accounts. That's how gangbuster the store was going at that
and
point.
they were all handwritten in
Yeah.
there when somebody paid, the
Yeah.
date.
Well, you would have to write a receipt on the receipt book.
Yes,
And
yes.
hand it to the customer.
Yes.
And
then
then
make the entry into the
and
ledger.
then Mom and Grandmama and Carolyn during that time, and then later, just Grandmama and Mom would post to the ledger pages at nighttime, because usually you were too busy to do it during the day.
So they would bring the ledger book
Yeah,
home.
yeah. And I watched Mom do that for so much of my lifetime. I thought, there is no way I'm going to do that.
I know that, not to get too deep into the politics and the demographics, but as it changed, so in the early days, that probably was a whole lot more of cashing a payroll check
Yes.
for somebody
Oh, yeah.
than it was government checks.
That's true.
Because there wasn't direct deposit.
Right,
Right.
right.
And so
Right.
every
Oh, yeah.
company wrote their paycheck
Yeah.
on
And that was such a blue collar working
part of town. Yep.
part of town. Yes.
And most people paid for everything with cash. A lot of people didn't have a checking account, right? They would buy things that in those early days that they had to
or
have
they'd
cash
put it
for.
on the book.
Or they'd
and
charge it.
They'd
Right,
put it on the book
right.
and pay payments. In fact, we had a man that was in his 90s
Yeah.
that even came every week to see us and bring us something. His birth certificate actually said Hollywood, Tennessee. And
Wow.
he says that Granddaddy Sanford gave him an account as a young man to make payments on a bicycle so he could throw a paper route. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, cash and checks was a part of Granddaddy Sanford's
Oh, it was-
Yeah.
from the very, very early
Sure.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it helped so many people, and that always impressed me so much. And then last weekend at the funeral, the pastor saw a man walk by the registry. This man was at another funeral, and he saw the man walked by Daddy's registry, and there was a picture of Daddy, and he stopped and he said, "That's that man that had the furniture store. He helped me." And then he said it again. He said, "He helped me."
Wow.
And so that was the kind of reputation that the store had, to be a place where they would really help people that needed help.
Well, that's, I mean, in a nutshell, that's what economy is.
Yeah.
I mean, and in an economy, there's a cycle of, someone is putting into something and somebody is giving, like it's a life cycle, right? And so, I mean, the world is a lot different place now because your local economy is not as big of a deal as it was then, because we have FedEx and we have UPS and we have the internet and those things. The economic world has just gotten bigger. But in those years, I mean, the local economy of a store like that, you're the hub of everything that goes
That's right.
on. I mean, I never had thought about the store in the light of that being where somebody would go cash their payroll check.
Absolutely.
Completely changes my.
Yeah, back in the day, you didn't go to the bank. You went someplace like Hollywood Furniture and Hardware to cash your payroll check. And then when the government check started on the 1st and the 3rd, nobody took off on the 1st and the 3rd. You were either delivering furniture, cashing checks, or people were buying stuff. They'd come in and pay their bill for the previous month, and then they'd make purchases that would be not paid till the beginning of the first month. So you're right. There's a
So
cycle.
the store functioned very much like a bank or
Yeah,
a line
we-
of
Oh,
credit.
yeah,
I mean,
for
it-
sure.
Oh, yeah. I
yeah.
can't tell you how many trips we'd have to make to the bank on the 1st and the 3rd because we needed more cash.
Well, and Dad would only draw $10,000 at a time because that's what he was insured for. And if he was held up, then and he probably would make 8 or 10 trips to the bank
At least. Yeah.
on those days.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And they'd line up, out
Well,
the door.
and when I first started there in '86, for several years, we would have 3 lines of people paying. Grandmama had a book, I had a book, and Mom had a book. And we'd have 3 lines of people
Where did they go?
Waiting.
Where were the lines?
right there
in
at the
the
office
store.
window.
The office window.
But they were side by side by
Yeah,
side.
Yeah, yeah. And it was really genius of Granddaddy to start doing that, and then Dad too, because you know what? Even if they didn't owe a bill, they were
They're still in the store, right.
looking around,
Yeah.
and they might buy
Especially
something
while they were in line.
when they were there. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about credit and the Home Furnishing Association, which turned into Memphis Consumer Credit.
Yeah, let me back up just a second on that. We weren't still on the ledger system when we closed 2 years ago. Our brother Mike, he's always been a tech guy, and he pretty much designed all of our software to where we went on computer systems and came into the modern.
So the system that y'all ran the computer off of was a software that Mike wrote?
Yep.
Well, it was actually a software that Mike had to adapt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Dad had actually hired some guys to write the
Yeah.
original software because Mike was still in school and Mike really wasn't doing that yet. And it was kind of hard for Mike to try to adapt everything to how those guys had written it.
So he did it over from
But
scratch?
Mike just had...
So it was pretty
yeah.
much customized.
Yes.
To where it
Yes.
fit what we needed.
Right.
I've never heard that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my dad's software system was written by Mike at the clinic.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first, when I went to work at clinic, that was one of the first real difficult things that we had to get over was we had to retire Mike's software system. But when we retired Mike's software system, probably half the vet clinics in Memphis were
Right.
using Mike's
Yes.
system
Right.
Yes.
because of Mike's reputation and
Yes.
my dad's reputation. People would ask my dad what they used, and he would tell them. And so Mike did all the IT for all these different clinics because he would install their software.
And still
then,
doing, and still
Yeah.
comes back to Memphis,
Uh-huh,
even though he's
yeah.
delivered to do to help. Of course, he can do most of it remotely,
remotely now.
but he has to come back to do maintenance stuff and stuff like that.
And that's why he had to leave us today.
That's right.
Because he
Yeah.
had a couple of customers
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
needed his assistance. And all the time, my main job was to take care of all the accounting, not the accounting, but the accounts receivable. And Dad did the accounts payable until, long time down the road.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Mother. But, so anytime there was a glitch or a hang-up, I'd always call Mike, and he could always fix it over the phone. I'm like, how'd you do that,
And even with all the computerized things, Daddy wanted a hard copy of everything. I mean, a paper copy. And we have a house full of
Yes, we do.
papers.
Yeah.
And Daddy was always having to do paperwork. And it was either paperwork from the store or paperwork from an investment or paperwork from some church committee he was on
Yeah.
or consumer credit.
Yeah.
We have a lot of paperwork.
I mean, I remember that staying over there as a kid, just when y'all would leave us there.
Oh, yeah.
At some point after dinner, Pop went and did paperwork.
Work.
I
I
never
get
knew
it.
what that was, but he did. He had folding tables. And that was probably the reason we never actually stayed upstairs, because he kind of had an office upstairs
He
in
changed
y'all's
one of the.
bedroom.
That's right.
Yeah,
And-
yeah. And he was even doing paperwork a couple of years ago at Allen Morgan when he had broken his hip. Bart took a table up there and he had papers all on it. And he would roll up in his wheelchair and do paperwork.
Well, actually, he was in his late 80s when he quit compiling all of the accounting work that I would compile that probably could have gone on to the accountant then, but it had to be the Berl Gary way, and he had to make sure and have all of that in line and done as it should be to take to the accountant's office.
Yeah.
Who was your accountant?
Glenn Melton
For
originally.
years,
that
it was
was a
Glenn
KA
Melton.
Yep.
with that.
Oh, that was
yeah.
my dad's accountant
Yeah.
He was.
until he retired. That was an interesting conversation with Dad when I suggested we use somebody other than Glenn Melton. Dad was like, I don't think we can. And then he was like, don't know why I'm arguing with you
Well,
about this.
I can tell you right now, Glenn Melton would still be our accountant if we did. I wish we had him now.
Yeah, he didn't retire.
I'm just saying. Yeah.
Wow.
He was that good.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was that good, but I'm sure it also had to do with the information that he was given from
Yes.
Berl B. Gary.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, because
For sure.
you're
Versus-
only as good as the.
Yeah, his
Right.
secretary would tell us, all we basically do is take your dad's and just transfer all
to the right form.
Yeah.
on the right form.
So I was told this weekend by one of the men, Ray. What is
Franke.
his title?
Ray Frocky.
What's his title though? What is his?
Well, Dad had established a profit sharing plan for us at the store.
Okay.
And of course, like I said, Dad had a financial sale that nobody else got, and he worked very closely with Olin Atkins,
Right.
who eventually founded Atkins Capital, and Ray is the guy there now that's been doing it.
Right. He was the next leader of Atkins Capital.
And
But-
Well, Larry Corbin is actually the
Larry Corbin.
top
But
guy.
Ray was telling me this weekend when I thanked him for all he had done for Daddy over the years. He said, your daddy taught me so much. He said, I would not be who I am. He said, the first time your dad came, and I thought I knew everything about what we needed to talk about in our meeting. When your dad left, he said, there's a few things that I've learned about in my research, and the next time I come, I want you to know this, 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 and this. And he said that changed my whole career and the way I did things because I did all that he told me, and he said it made such a difference.
That reminds me of Meredith Crawford.
Yes.
Because Meredith Crawford told me the exact same thing.
He did.
Driving to Colorado. Pop was funny about, you talk about how selfless he was. If you were on a road trip with Pop and he wasn't driving, he did not sit in the front seat. At least that's when me and Will, one of us always sat in the front seat. And I remember on that particular trip, Pop sat in the back with Will for a stretch and they fell asleep. And I remember Meredith Crawford telling me that. He said, because Meredith's father was at Memphis Consumer Credit.
Right.
And he said, when I got this job, I thought I knew everything. And he said, your granddaddy taught me everything that I knew. I learned more from your granddaddy than I did from my own dad. Anyways, that's just really interesting. And I heard Ray Franke came to the clinic. He and his wife were clients at the clinic. And he said, he told me something similar to that when I was at the clinic, that he made a comment to that extent that he learned more from Pop than he ever taught Pop.
Yes.
Not even close.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was supposed to be the investment guru,
Yeah.
But go ahead, talk about the profit sharing plan.
Well, he just established a profit shares plan for employees years ago, and of course he designed it and put it together, and it's a difference maker for us. But in order to have a profit sharing plan, you have to show a profit every year.
Yeah.
And we always had a profit because he was so on top of everything, and the contributions were made to us and to not just to us, not just to the ownership, but the employees as well.
And the employees never contributed a dime.
That's right. That's right.
Like most 401ks,
Yeah.
you have to contribute or have to have it taken out.
I didn't know
The
that.
employees never contributed a dime.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
But you
store
had to
did,
be there. You
the
had to-
store did 100% of
I
the
did not
contributions.
know that.
Yes.
But there were all kinds of rules back to the fair thing. I do remember Pop talking about the rules it took to participate in the profit
Well,
sharing
you had
plan.
to be there for a certain amount of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you
Before
were
you could become vested.
okay. Do you remember what those rules were? How long did you have to be there before you were vested? 5 years? 3 years?
I don't remember, but
It was a lot. It was more than 6 months. Or
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh
yeah, it
yeah.
was.
Yeah. You weren't on there automatically. You were accruing,
Yes.
but you didn't. If you decided you wanted to leave, you didn't get it until you'd been there a certain length of time.
So if a person was there as a new employee, they were accruing to their portion of the profit sharing plan. If that person left before they were vested, did their portion stay with the whole profit sharing plan?
Best I can tell you, it did, because then it would be divided evenly between.
My point is, he was rewarded
Yes.
for his long
Yes.
years of service, and that's, I'm putting words into y'all's mouth right now, because loyalty and longevity, like those are things that, and being fair, it really mattered to Pop.
Sure. it did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
anyways.
Well, and he just didn't want to be a little mom and pop store that people worked at for 30, 40 years and retired from and didn't have an investment account or didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
We had employees that were there for
Roland Booter.
How long he was there?
Was there from when he came back from World War II until he retired.
Yeah, Roland Booter.
Between 35 and 38 years.
He came back from being a soldier in World War II. I mean, and he was under the line of fire, and that was his career. He ran all our delivery stuff and warehouse and stuff like that, and
Who were some of the other employees that were there a really long time?
Mr. Marshall.
Mr. Marshall.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Lofton.
Yeah.
What were their first names?
Bill Lofton's was Bill because I met his son at the funeral home. I don't remember Mr. Marshall's first name.
Robert.
Robert Marshall.
That's right.
Robert Marshall.
Grandma Carolyn said she followed Robert Marshall around the whole time she was a child because she wanted to know how to fix everything, and she did.
Dickie Deasing was one. Dickie went on to be a pastor after he left there.
But my grandparents.
How long did Leon work there?
Leon Stevenson.
He started in the 70s.
Yeah.
Well, that's nearly 30 years,
And
20 years, because he was there when I was a kid.
Yeah. Calvin Darden was there a long time. We closed James Allen. I mean, it's amazing because there's so many people that came there and worked, like Velton Thompson. He was he came to the.
He worked at the store?
He sure did. Worked on the delivery truck at the store.
I didn't know that.
He brought William, his uncle, Leon. Now, Leon Thompson was Velton's father. Leon was a long-time loyal customer of ours. They were tree cutters, the family.
Right.
Leon and his brother,
William. Yeah.
William was at the store Leon's passed, but Velton and
I saw Velton and William at the funeral.
I asked William, I said, how old are you now, William? I think he said 88. I said, are you still cutting trees? He said, yes, sir.
Well, he drove the
the bucket truck.
Well, he operated the crane at Mom and Dad's house.
Yeah.
In the last few months.
Well,
I was
talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I told Gary Henson at the funeral that I thought that was Velton and William.
Yes.
And he was like, yeah, that's exactly who that is. Went over to talk to him. And I was trying to explain, one of my kids was standing right there, that when I was a kid, I remember Leon doing that exact same thing. Like he was ancient, but he was there with the crew.
Yeah.
Right.
He wasn't up in the tree, but he was running, that crane, the bucket truck or crane or
but
whatever it was.
We had a lot of customers like that. I mean, not just the commercial accounts for the hardware, because we had all those commercial accounts up through down there. All up and down Hollywood and North Memphis and over on Jackson. Think about all the industry that's over there. They all had hardware accounts with us over the years.
Yeah.
So it was like we were running two businesses under the same roof. The hardware store was one and the same as the furniture, but the hardware was on credit, the furniture was on credit, and it just all worked together. It was
And that's why people call Daddy Mr. Hollywood.
Yeah.
But my grandparents and my parents loved their customers and loved their employees and treated them as much like family as they could.
Yeah.
If somebody had a birthday, they would take them a cake. If somebody had a death in the family, they would take them a meal. And that always made such an impression on me, and kept up with their names and their families and how they were connected, and so giving and generous.
And we had so many of them there Saturday.
Yeah.
To celebrate Dad's life, even though we've been closed for over 2 years. I drove around by the store to see several people because I knew where they lived, and I didn't have their number in my phone, and I wanted to let them know about Dad's.
Oh, man. I want you all to go back to Memphis or the Furniture Association and what became Memphis Consumer Credit.
Well, and you can fill in wherever you want, Les. Back in the day, there was not a central reporting agency for credit in Memphis proper. I mean, and so when somebody wanted to open an account, you'd have to pick up the phone and call. They said, well, I've got an account at the grocery store, and I've got an account over here, over there, and you'd have to pick up the phone and call.
Get a credit reference.
Yeah, credit reference. But you'd have to call and say, I need a credit reference on John Doe, and then figure out if they sure enough were
Good customer,
good,
bad customer.
would be a bad potential, a good or bad potential customer, and there wasn't that in Memphis. And then Granddaddy Sanford was instrumental in the founding of Memphis Consumer Credit, and that's what they did. It became a central reporting agency. So way back in the day, but there weren't computer systems, and you'd have to call over there and get the information from Memphis Consumer Credit on John Doe and find it.
And was that first for the furniture dealers? That was my understanding from Pop and Meredith. That the furniture dealers, they created a network.
That's right.
So that they could share credit
That's right.
references.
Yeah.
And they formed it as a nonprofit,
Yeah.
even though it made profit
Yeah.
or made revenue.
Yeah.
But my understanding was they
That's right.
rented an office, literally had manila file folders.
That's right.
And I didn't know this until I went to work for SunTrust Bank, which was previously NBC.
Mm-hmm.
When SunTrust Bank bought NBC, there were 3 credit bureaus at that time in the world: TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. But NBC had a deal with Memphis Consumer Credit where they bought their credit information from Memphis Consumer Credit.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, that would have been 2006, 7, 8, right through there. Memphis Consumer Credit was the only remaining independently held credit file owner in the world.
At least in the country.
It was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Because and they held on to it because, as I understood it from Pop, the 3 bureaus were trying to buy their credit files. Pop didn't think it was enough money.
Yeah.
That's the way he told it to me.
He was chairman of the board for so many years.
And they held on and held on and held on. And I think when it was all said and done, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but the number that I remember, it was about 2008 or 9 when they sold the credit files to Equifax. But I think it was $11 million. Does that sound right?
I think.
And then what the deal they structured with Equifax not only sold the credit files, it also sold the servicing rights to those credit files, because prior to that time, Equifax was paying Memphis Consumer Credit for access to those files.
Yeah.
So when I was making home mortgages, I had to buy somebody's credit report from Memphis Consumer Credit. And my first job at Wells Fargo, because it was a national bank, we bought it from some internet platform. But when we bought our credit files from Memphis Consumer Credit, it was unbelievable how much better I could do my job as a mortgage banker.
Oh, yeah.
Because I could pick up the phone if there was a mistake on it, and I could call Memphis Consumer Credit, and I could talk to a live person, and it got fixed immediately.
That's right.
You're so right.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable how much more efficient I was able to do my job at SunTrust than I was at any other. I worked at 4 different investment banks, and I never was able to do it as well as I could at SunTrust because of the ability to make sure somebody had an accurate credit file. And I just always thought that was so interesting because Granddaddy Sanford and Pop were so instrumental in that.
Getting that started.
Yeah.
And of course, now it is Confluent Strategies. Memphis Consumer Credit is now Confluent Strategies, which is actually the main guy is Meredith Crawford, whose dad was
the original
Harold Crawford
and he was the original director of the.
I don't know if he was the original, but he'd been it for years.
But he was the CEO for a long time.
Oh yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And his wife was there Saturday.
Yeah,
Jean Crawford.
Jean Crawford was there
wow.
Saturday. Meredith
She's
was there.
in her mid-90s.
Mm-hmm. And but yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. But,
so the ability to keep a good credit file allowed you all to be able to extend good credit to good customers. At what point in time did y'all start doing letting somebody else finance the furniture?
Well, we kept doing it. We were doing it all the way up till pretty much to that last year. But we got to where we started selling a lot of higher price furniture. We really got off into Victorian furniture, made us a destination point for folks that wanted the reproduction and the Victorian type furniture. We were still carrying everything else, but it gave us something that we could promote and advertise that would make people drive here from another city because it just wasn't anybody specializing in that. There was still a demand for it. It was still being manufactured down in Alabama in Montgomery, and still being made out of solid mahogany and all the same. There were reproductions, and we got into that in a big way because we saw it was an opportunity to have something that they couldn't go buy at Haverty's or any of the chain stores, or for that matter, any of the local stores. But it was a specialty, and we didn't have everything in that, but you know, it was a lot larger ticket, a lot larger purchases, and you know, here again, helping with cash flow and everything else, it was a lot better if we could get somebody qualified for a $10,000 purchase on whatever through one of the financing companies. And then we would get our cash, and they'd have a good customer, and you know, so that's really kind of where we got into that, using the outside financing more and more. But there were so many. I mean, we really a lot of times our first option was always
to carry the note.
To carry the note because it was profitable.
Yeah.
Because we weren't selling you had to have good credit to open with Hollywood Furniture and Hardware, and of course they did with the finance companies too. But you know, it just was kind of how we expanded that.
But we kind of decided, or Dad decided, that 24 months would be the longest we would finance a note.
That's true.
So if you've got a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000
Furniture bill,
the note on 24 months was huge.
Yeah.
And it was advantageous to us and to the potential buyer to sell it to, or let a finance company take it, because they would finance forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the people would be able to afford the note. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long did it take y'all to close out all the different accounts you were carrying when you decided it was time to close the store?
Well, we stopped financing beyond 12 months when we were pretty sure we were going to close in 12 months. At least we started working that direction. And that was in early 2023.
When we closed, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, actually, we started early 2022, not financing anybody longer than 12 months, because we knew we were going to. That was the plan. And then COVID hit, you know, in whatever month it hit, and we stayed open. All the furniture stores, everybody else that just had furniture had to close because it wasn't considered an essential business. Hardware stores were considered essential businesses. So we stayed open, and we were selling furniture and mattresses and hardware. And we had a lot of customers that came, you know, new customers as a result of that, because we were able to stay open and still do our financing and so forth as that. And so we ended up we pretty much wrapped up the financing by the end of that year, didn't we? And we said we'd have 2 months over into 23 to you know, liquidate pretty much. And so many people, when they heard that we were closing, they were, oh, I'm so sorry. They were sorry because they like to shop there. But, you know, most of the time when you hear about somebody that's closing, it's because they're broke or their business is horrible and all that. Partly because of COVID, but we were profitable all the way to the end. We didn't make the decision because, it's just dry, business is dried up. We were still profitable, but we just drew a line in the sand and said this is going to be the date. You know, so that's what we did. And we don't look back either.
You were talking about who and when did you join Do It Best?
Well, and I can't give you the date, Spence, but
what was your member number?
2577.
Okay.
There was Orgel Brothers and Stratton Warren, two of the biggest, really hardware distributors or wholesalers in the country originally. So we always had we'd get deliveries at just about every week from both of them. We'd have a Stratton Warren truck and we'd have an Orgel Brothers truck that would come, and we had a rep that called on. We had their big old huge catalog, wasn't on computer then and all that. But what happened was Stratton Warren closed, and so then you just had Orgel Brothers. We still had friends at Orgel Brothers. We still bought some stuff from them initially, but we knew we needed at least another source, and that's when we started looking to Do It Best out of, which was originally was HWI, Hardware Wholesalers Association.
But y'all made that decision during your career?
Oh, yeah.
So prior to Do It Best, where did Granddaddy Sanford and Pop buy hardware?
Orgel Brothers and Stratton Warren.
Did they go to a market?
Oh yeah, they'd have a big market here in Memphis at the Coliseum, and different ones at different times, and we'd go shop them and just see all the different vendors like you do at any show, and then like I said, we'd have a rep. The reps became really good friends.
They did.
Because they'd come out the store and Grandmama would fix them lunch.
Well, Grandmama would make their favorite sandwich.
Oh yeah, whatever day.
Yeah.
Ray
Yeah.
Courtney,
Yeah.
Ray Courtney was with Stratton Warren. Harold Lee was a rep that we had with Orgel Brothers, and there was a bunch over the years. But if Stratton Warren didn't have it, and it wasn't so much what's your price? What's your price? It was more
Availability.
We bought from both, and they knew that it was a working relationship, even between them.
And the salesman would write the order in the store.
Yeah, they weren't punching it on a computer.
No,
And they
and
weren't
the truck
calling
would bring it. Next week.
That's right. And
I'm sure there was a filing system for your copy of the order that was written.
Oh yeah.
And then checking it in and receiving it.
Well, and you know what? That's the way I still live. I'm a paper copy guy. People ask, I almost want to say when somebody asks me if I want a receipt, go, how dare you ask me? Of course I want a receipt. Because I got to have a paper copy. And my ping pong table in my playroom is my office, and it looks like Pop's did because there's papers and stacks and, but don't touch it because I know where everything is on there for the most part. But anyway, in the course of that, we realized that we needed, after Stratton Warren closed, we needed another source where we could have more than one source. And I can remember going to Cape Girardeau because they had a big, bringing in potential new members. And Dad and I went to Cape Girardeau and sat down and listened to them. We ended up joining HWI at that time, that eventually became Do It Best.
And that was a buying group?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, but it was a member-owned
Right.
company.
Right.
So then we acquired stock.
You acquired stock based on your purchase.
Because we were a member.
Yeah, based on your purchases and so forth as that, and as a result of that, then you'd get a rebate every year.
Yeah, a loyalty rebate.
It was based on your purchases, and it would be different levels for different things, percentage-wise, and that was something we'd never gotten before. And
I'm sure that was right up Pop's alley, being
Oh, yeah,
loyal to something, man.
and getting a big check back at the end of the year.
You're
Heck
going to
yeah.
pat me on the back for being loyal?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. And
Mr. Loyal.
But we kept buying from Orgel Brothers even after that, but we transitioned over pretty good. It got to a point where we pretty much were doing everything with Do It Best, and
there's so many things about my current job that I wish I could talk to Pop about, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
Because I do business with 3 different buying groups.
Yeah.
They have a market twice a year.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, now I have somebody that goes to those markets, but when I took this business back for 3 or 4 years, I had to go do all those shows myself.
Yeah.
And I've walked around. The one that's the most similar to Do It Best is called Mid-States Distributing Company, and it's a group of 35 members who all own basically farm and home ag stores, and they're kind of in the Midwest. But they operate like the mafia, like whatever one of them does, they all do.
Yeah.
And they meet every morning at 6 o'clock, and they drink coffee together.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how late they stay out at the bar. They're like farmers. They're going to start at 6 o'clock, the 35 members. But I have walked around that show so many times, and I've talked to the other vendors, and the older ones did the Do It Best markets and did the Orgel Brothers markets.
Oh, yeah.
So they've sold all these different buy groups, and I've just thought it's just interesting to me how
That is interesting.
the similarities.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's a different world, but even given all the changes in the internet and where you can buy stuff, like there's still organizations like that are a group of people who realize they can do better by banding together as
That's
a group
right.
and supporting
That's
each
exactly
other.
right.
Anyways,
Yeah, Orgel Brothers was big into sporting goods, and so was Do It Best. We could, we could buy a shotgun through Do It Best. Because you'd go to the show and there'd be a Remington display, and and those shows were in Indianapolis, so that was always fun to go to Indianapolis and go to that big show. It's a huge show, but the Orgel Brothers shows were fun to go to too. It's just it's just like everything else. If you're not willing to change with what's going on, then you won't be able to change. And that was just part of the transition of the hardware side of it.
When y'all made the decision to go with Do It Best or HWI, was Ace Hardware an option at that point?
Maybe. I just remember we were pretty much sold on Do It Best.
Okay.
There was a guy named Harold Willis that was relentless, coming and calling on us to trying to get us to join. Recruiting. To be a member of HWI at that time. And he was a good guy. I mean, he was he had a territory and he was recruiting, new dealers. And, our books were pretty good. And we were a pretty good prospect for anybody. And so, and it was a change of the way we did business a little bit, but not so much. Their way of doing business initially was way better as far as how we didn't have to price everything by hand. I mean, we had stickers and all
With
that.
a red China marking
Yeah, red
pen.
China marking pen, yeah.
Yeah.
And so...
and not China the country. The red pencil that was like wax that you could write on something.
could write on anything.
And then write the cost by the code, which Granddaddy Sanford established as fear of thy God.
Okay, I was literally going there next.
Forgot about
Explain
that.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Well, so for us to know the cost code, you'd have to, if something cost $1, $35, it would be F for 1, A for 3, and then T for 5. And we would know what it was. And, if it was
So
2
fear thy God is 9 letters.
Yes.
1 through 9.
Yeah.
No, there's a 0 in there. D is 0.
Oh,
Oh.
that's right.
Okay, 10 letters.
Yeah, God, the D in God is 0.
Right.
And Granddaddy Sanford came up with that.
So we would know, like on big
I'd
purchases.
forgotten about that.
And we weren't
Man, I didn't.
a negotiating
could.
kind of store. I mean, we put a fair price on it.
Yeah.
And in the last few years, when we were selling all that really high dollar stuff, and there was certain groups of people that only knew how to barter, and they would get insulted if we wouldn't give them a smaller price.
Yeah.
And we would be insulted because we would say, this is the fair price. And we're not going to come in, we're not going to negotiate and let this guy buy it for this and you buy it for that. It's just a fair price. But we finally had to play the game. And we had a salesman especially that was really good at playing that.
Oh, yeah.
And so if something cost, $1,500, Brad would go tell the customer, best I can give you is, $19,000. And then he'd come to us and they'd end up paying the $15,000, which was our fair price for the whole deal of furniture, but they would think they played the game and actually undercut us.
And the motto for the store was the House of Square Dealings.
It was
Yeah.
on our sign, on
Yeah.
all of our stationery, everything.
And the
The
delivery
invoices
truck.
and all
Yeah.
that.
And the yardsticks.
Yeah.
And how often do you even hear that terminology in this day and time?
Square deal.
Square dealing.
Yeah.
You get a square deal. You tell somebody that now, they'd go, "What is a square deal?"
So why, before the bartering and negotiating, why was it important to record the cost of something all the time? Do you know why, Granddaddy? When I say that, I mean like literally on
For
the
inventory
price
purposes.
stick.
Yeah, for nothing else, for inventory purposes.
Because when you got to the end of the year and you had to do the inventory, you had to record the cost.
You needed to know what you paid for
If
it.
the hammer cost $1.35, you couldn't put $2.99.
You had to record the cost.
You had to record the cost for the inventory
So on wherever the price was written, you had letters on there.
underneath it.
If
And
it was
that was the cost.
$1.35, that would have been an F
A. T.
A T.
Yeah.
And what really got interesting was when we joined HWI Do It Best. They had a completely different code, so we were using 2 codes.
And it was
'Cause
letters?
They pre-printed their price stickers when it would come in. We just took the stickers and put them on there, and you could set the retail and everything when you ordered it. But we were using Fear Thy God and Black Horse. Oops, I probably if Do It Best is still using it, I'm sorry about that. But
What was their code?
Black Horse
Huh. And that was 10 letters, all of them unique characters.
with E being 0.
I'd love to know from Granddaddy Sanford where he got that.
Well,
I mean, maybe he dreamed it up, but that's so interesting.
Well, he could have gotten it from Orgel Brothers or Stratton Warren because he was buying from them
he
way back
also could have just thought that up
Yeah.
because that's the
Could've.
principle he lived by,
That's right.
Daddy lived by. they believed in God. They believed God's principles were the best for running a business.
Yeah.
Integrity, honesty.
Well, when we were growing up, a couple of Dad's friends got into trouble with the government with different things. And it was hammered in our head that the only way we're operating business is the right way.
Yeah.
And we paid sale tax on everything we bought. I mean, we would pay cost for it, but we paid sales tax. And we could have slid it under the rug. But God doesn't bless people that slide everything under the rug.
Yeah.
So we had to be honorable, and we had to even personally do the right thing. And, yeah.
Wow. I had an interesting conversation with Tripp the other day about that very thing, about sales tax, because we went and visited a friend of mine that owns a fireworks stand. And I cannot imagine that he's going to listen to this far in, but if he does, I'm not throwing shade at him. But every year I go on July the 3rd, at the end of the day, and I buy whatever he has left. Not his whole stand, but I'll take a couple $100, whatever, and I take him cash. And he always gives me a discount. And I have no idea what he does with his money, whether he pays taxes on it or not. But I was explaining to Tripp that if you have cash, there are still people around that will honor cash, because you don't have to pay 3% to a credit card or whatever like that. Well, we went and saw my friend, and he gave me a nice discount, and we paid him. We gave him 3 $100 bills. And there was one thing that a little kid that was coming to our house for 4th of July wanted, and it was the little parachute army men, and he was out of them. So we went to one of these other fireworks stands that's a chain, and we shopped and got a few more things, and we got to the end, and they had 2 cash registers. And one said credit card only, and one said cash only. Mm-hmm. And I had explained to Tripp, I said, did you see how, my friend gave us a discount because I gave him cash? He said, yeah, and it was explaining why that was, and I told him, I said, some people do that because they think that income tax is immoral and unethical and that the government shouldn't charge us, and so they don't record their cash transactions. And more power to them. That's how they live their life. That's a decision they made. And I said, other people just, count it all into their books, and they pay income taxes on it. And I said, we get a lot of cash in our business, and we have to do it this way because if you ever got caught, it's significant, severe penalties. But I said at the same time, it's always really tempting not to put cash, so we just kind of were talking through that. So we went to this next fireworks stand, and they had 2 cash registers. The guy said, he was standing there, and he said, are you paying with cash or a card? And I said, well, I'll pay with the credit card at this one. And the guy turned around to the other cash register, and Tripp's eyes were as big as saucers. I mean, it was 5 minutes after we'd had this conversation.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
They're doing that.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's all right. You said something a minute ago, Leslie, that made me think about, actually you told me this the other day on the telephone. I want you to talk just a little bit about personal responsibility of finances that Pop instilled in y'all. Particularly, you would talk to me about how y'all got paid and, living on next to nothing because of the discipline of that.
Right.
You kind of.
Well, and then Vicki and Bart probably remember this as much as I do, or maybe better. But Dad would teach us as children that when he and Mother married, they had envelopes. So the envelopes were in the priority line. And there was, rent before they owned a house. And there was tithes and offerings. And there was utility bill. And there was whatever else they owed, which was a very small amount, I imagine, because they didn't go into debt. The very last envelope was entertainment. And entertainment means, am I going to take Marilyn to dinner on Friday or Saturday night? Or are we going to go see the latest movie that was out? And so they would put money in the envelope, however they got paid each week or whatever it was. And if they got to the last envelope and there was no money for entertainment, they didn't go out to eat or they didn't go to a movie. And so that instilled to us that, that wasn't put before everything else like most people do now. Mm-hmm. And then after I started working at the store in '86, there was a big part of our salary that was held off until our final check of the year. Mm-hmm. And we had enough. I mean, I didn't make anything at the beginning because, I might not have been there long, and I really wasn't planning to be. But anyway, it instilled in us that we had to live on what we had to live on, and at the end, it forced us to either blow it or decide to invest it. And, of course, not having children and not having a lot of the other obligations, then I always invested mine every year at the end of the year. And then Dad would always teach us one of the best things, other than all the other things we've talked about that are the most important lessons in life. One of the most important lessons next to that is he taught us about the propensity to spend. And he said there's rich people that make $100,000, which was a lot of money to me in '86, still a lot of money, and there's people that make $500,000, and there's people that make $20,000 a year. And most everybody spends everything they make. And so if you can learn to live on the amount of money that's comfortable, where you don't go without anything and you have plenty of fun and you make sure whatever, then all the rest is just, kind of waste. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a great lesson to learn from the time we were children up until I was in the business with him, to try to live within my means and then invest the rest of it. So.
Mm-hmm.
And we ran our business that way.
Yes, we did.
So, again, my mind's going 1,000 directions. I'm trying to think of which one of those things you just said that I want to zero in on. But talk for just a minute about about to fill this card up. The profit sharing plan and Pop's investment accounts, like one of the things Pop was really good at was, evaluating stocks and participating in the markets. Like he was ahead of his time before Yahoo Finance and all these different things. He cared about that, and he was really good at it. And the story that I'm trying to get y'all to tell is just, it was not until really late in his life that he turned over investment control of the profit sharing plan. He made all of the investments himself and was really proud of how it did. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of talk about that just a little bit?
You just kind of summed it up. He had that financial mind. That's how he got that job at IBM way back in the day. He had the financial mind not only to be able to live his life the way Leslie just talked about, and not just personal, but also in his business. But he could do all the analysis of same thing that the stockbrokers and all of them can do. He was able to do that and had a mind enough to see where to invest in. But at the same time, he always had an open ear to listen. I mentioned earlier Olin Atkins. Olin Atkins and Dad were very close friends, but Olin was also he was a financial advisor, mm-hmm. and he'd always do all this research, and then he'd run and bounce it off of Olin Atkins. Now, like I said, Olin's gone now. Ray Frocky, we've already talked about, stepped in, and he knew kind of the same part of that that Olin had, but they learned so much from Dad, because he was watching every penny and every nickel, and consequently we were able to fund a profit sharing plan every year, mm-hmm. and still pay all of our help and not have any debt. Mm-hmm. We never went to the bank and borrowed money to be able to pay the bills for the stuff that we had bought the previous month, and we lived our lives that way because of what he taught us.
Okay, I want to transition, but before I do, I just want to say, I think the enduring thing that I hear y'all saying is about not only intentionality, but prioritizing things.
Oh, yeah.
Eating and like providing for your family first and then entertainment last. I think one of the interesting things about where we are now, because people that are listening will hear this and say, well, that was old times. You couldn't live that way. And the truth of the matter is, yes, it's a different time, but what you're describing is a prioritization of what's most important. And I think one of the problems with our current culture is we prioritize what everybody thinks about us and mm-hmm. what they see mm-hmm. because of social media and all these other things. And so we're inclined to do things not based on whether or not it's a good idea or a good financial decision, but because of what everybody around us thinks. We all buy cars because it's what it looks like. It makes us look rich, or it makes us look a certain way.
Or what we want.
Or what
Our
we want.
desires.
And I think that's so interesting what you're saying is his framework for making those decisions, and Granddaddy's framework for making those decisions was so much more based on what was important than what, and priorities than what other people thought. Okay, that being said, I got a list that I want to kind of go through, and we can keep this part short because we're going to run out of time on all these memory cards that we have. But I'm going to say a phrase, and I want you to, if a story comes your way, I want you to, to mine. And if it doesn't, then I'll give a story because I tried to pre-exist this list. But Pop was a great employee. I'll give you mine because he told it to me a million times. Pop stuck it out at the store because he knew he was going to have the opportunity to buy it. And I heard him say 1,000 times, Mr. Sanford took too long to sell it to me, and he charged me too much for it. But Pop had made that decision, and he valued loyalty, and so he stuck it out, and he decided he was going to be a better employee. If you couldn't be a good employee, you'd never be a good employer. It's kind of that intentionality and priority thing.
And can I add to that?
Yeah.
His employer was his father-in-law, and he loved my mom, their daughter, but he also loved Grandmama and Granddaddy Sanford. And so the respect that was there, even though he always thought Granddaddy took too long to sell it to him, Dad honored
that and respected it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Anybody else have one? We've probably told stories about every single one of these, but if you said Pop was a great businessman, what thing about Pop comes to mind? You can just say the profitability of how he ran the store. Squeezed blood out of a turnip.
That's what I would say.
He just made good choices, and financially, and everything, but particularly finances, not just at home, but at the store too.
My next one is Pop was a great sports fan.
Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Beat him, beat him, beat him.
Yeah, and my memory of that is that as I grew up and became an adult, I mean, when I was first married, every single time there was a basketball game, Pop was calling me at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or the day before, hey, buddy, do you want my tickets? And so he not only made sure that he and Grandy had a ticket to the game, how many people to this day went to see a game with Pop? He always used his tickets or he gave them away to somebody.
And because he bought more tickets than he needed.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And then he would give them to people outside the family. If the family couldn't use them, there was nobody that was a good friend of his that was off limit.
Well, but when we were children, one of the best memories was going to the basketball game with Granddaddy Gary, John Butler. It's mainly the two of them then. And then in later years, it was the Johnsons and some other people. But Granddaddy and John Butler and Dad had tickets. And I remember the year or during the years that Larry Finch and Ronnie Robinson and Larry Keenan was there, I couldn't get enough turns to go to the basketball games because they had one other ticket, I think. And so I asked for my own season ticket for Christmas, and I actually got it.
Oh, man.
And it was on the row right behind Dad's tickets. And, yeah, that was one of the best memories ever.
And in those years, I could get a student ticket because I was a student, and I would go over there and see them at their season tickets during the game.
Pop was a great entrepreneur. Can you think of anything Pop started?
Refer to this whole conversation.
Yeah, no kidding.
He started the building program at Broadmoor Baptist Church for a new sanctuary.
He led the Housing Corporation for the Kappa
Alpha.
For KA.
And he also led the National Alumni Association when they did a big capital campaign for University of Memphis.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah. And it was the best campaign at that point that they'd ever had.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward through a couple of these because we've said so many of them, but my next one was business leader, church leader, money manager. So I want to go to one we haven't talked about for just a minute. Talk about Pop as a husband. And particularly, I think, given all the things we've said, my memories of Pop and Grandy were Pop was just as intentional about taking Grandy on trips later in life as he was anything y'all talked about.
Yeah.
They went to
For sure.
Florida
Yep.
in February or whenever they went. It was wintertime, and then they went to Branson all the time, and they
Cruises.
Traveled abroad.
Yeah,
and-
travel abroad.
He was always wanting to do things for Mom. He loved making her happy. He always bought her some special jewelry for Christmas and then
Christmas.
hid it, usually on the mantle, but the grandkids liked helping find it.
Yeah, there'd be notes and stuff, clues.
Yeah,
But more than anything else, he loved our mom like Christ loved the church.
yeah, he did.
Unconditionally.
And kept his marriage vows.
Yep. Yep. Unequivocally.
But
Never-
Mom wouldn't have been hard to be married to.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
she was a saint in her own
She
right.
was a
Well,
saint.
and I think that's a two-way street.
And she was
I don't
always so
think that-
frugal all those years, even
Yeah.
when she didn't
I
have to
think
be.
it was a two-way street, which is what a good marriage is supposed
Right,
to be. The way biblically that's a good marriage.
Yeah.
It needs to be a relationship, a
Yeah.
partnership,
Yeah, it says submitting one to another out of love.
and totally committed to either. And what a great, great, great intentional legacy that he's created for the generations that
Right.
have, that are here now.
They were married 65 years.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm about out of things. I'm sure as soon as we stop,
You got a lot.
I'll think of a million.
You've done
but
a great job. I'm
Yeah.
Yes, you
just
have.
been
proud
fun.
of my son and his wonderful brain. And
Yeah. Well,
is there
wanting to
anything
do
we
this.
haven't said?
I do have to say the thing about George Klein.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So many of old Memphians know George Klein,
Okay.
especially people that are Vicky, Bart, and Mike in my age, from when it was the old AM radio that we listened to in the car, and it was always George Klein. And George Klein was in Elvis's class at Humes, and they were freshmen when Daddy was a senior. And in later years, George Klein came out to the store to see Dad and tell him, Berl Gary, you were always my idol. Berl Gary, I always wanted to be like you. I always looked up to you. And it just really meant a lot to me that way back in those days, and after George Klein had made his life with Elvis and been Elvis's side his whole life, he still came back to remember the people that were just Memphians that really made a difference in his life.
That's fantastic.
I see this on Leslie's paper. This is about my parents, but they would always sign. I don't know if it's more Daddy than Mother, but they would always sign at the end of their card or their note, AMLA, all my love, always. And so,
Well, that was back from that cryptid code that
With
when
the-
they wrote each other,
yes.
that's what Dad would, yeah.
but even in our years, that's
Yeah.
what they would put on their
Huh.
cards.
we've been
great.
blessed.
Yes,
Yes,
we
we have.
have.
We have been blessed.
And we
We
thank-
are blessed because we've been blessed.
And we
Yeah.
thank the Lord. We're grateful to Him for all He's done through our parents and our family and the business. It all comes from Him.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'll offer this as a summary thought, because I'm sure if you've listened to all this, it's really easy to just kind of gloss over and think, well, that's another time, it's another generation, we don't live like that. And I think the truth of the matter is that we can all make conscious decisions to live more intentionally, and you can't undo what you did yesterday, but you can be proactive about what you do tomorrow.
Yes.
And so I hope that in sharing these stories, we've not only honored, Pop's life and Grandy's life and their legacy. I hope that we've also encouraged people to consider, how you act and how you do business and how you raise your family and how you do all those things, because he really believed that and wanted that. He would say that to us, that you're an example to everybody else, and people pay attention to the way that you behave, and he wanted you to do right because of that. So
And He loved His neighbor well.
he did.
Sounds like God's plan.
Yeah.
You're right. We need to take a nap and eat lunch. It's 2:00 and we've been going since 10.
Yeah.
So good job, everybody. And I just want to say thanks for listening. And
Yes.
this has been another episode of the Rolling Thunder podcast. We hope that you'll continue listening and share this episode with all your friends.
Join the team that is making a real difference. Ducks Unlimited is powered by people like you. With your help, we can continue to raise funds that drive wetlands conservation across the continent. Whether you are out selling event tickets, securing donations, or finding that next sponsor, we have a role for everyone. Sign up today to join your local DU chapter at ducks.org/volunteer or attend your local DU event. Ducks Unlimited, conservation for a continent.